I'd lost my job right before the holidays. I was scrolling through job boards when a forum post caught my eye. What's the fastest way for a girl to make money? There was a top comment underneath it. Get yourself a sugar daddy, duh. Mine drops 15 grand a month on me, remembers my favorite foods, keeps track of my period, the whole package. Only downside? Dude's got stamina for days. Keeps me up half the night. Can't keep his hands off me. I mean, have you seen him? Where did you find him? Is he single? He's got a girlfriend, but he hasn't touched her in forever. Says she just starfishes, like sleeping with a mannequin. How we met? This spring in Azure Bay, he grazed me with his car, lol. My chest tightened. Julian Sterling had been in Azure Bay on business back in March. He'd hit someone with his car there, too. My fingertips went numb as I kept scrolling. Just told him I wasn't feeling great today, and he ditched his girl to take me shopping for handbags. The photo showed 2 hands, fingers laced together. A fresh cut crossed the man's index finger, thin and new. The exact same spot where Julian had cut himself this morning, slicing a lemon for my wine. I dropped my phone face down on my lap, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I closed my eyes and told myself it couldn't be him. Not the Julian who'd tucked my ice-cold feet against his chest on cold nights. Not the Julian who remembered every little thing I loved, whose face lit up when he talked about me. We'd been together for 7 years. Our lives had woven together. Besides, our engagement party was in 2 days. He'd even designed the invitations himself. It had to be a coincidence. I took a few deep breaths and opened the thread again. The replies ranged from jealous to vicious. Her responses got smugger with each post. Why so salty? His girlfriend's just keeping a seat warm she doesn't even know how to keep. She deserves to be replaced. Men want excitement, not some cardboard cutout. My sugar daddy even pulled strings to get her fired, so I could take her job. Now that she's unemployed, he only gives her $7,000 a month, but I get $15K. Each line hit like a gut punch. A week ago, I'd been let go without explanation. HR had given me some vague line about a decision from above. I'd come home and buried myself in Julian's arms, feeling hurt and helpless. He'd kissed the top of my head. It's just a job, babe. You don't need it, I'll transfer you 7 grand a month. Stay home, hit the spa, binge whatever you want. Get bored? Go shopping, do brunch with friends. I told him I didn't want to become some useless kept girlfriend, but he'd just smiled. I want to take care of you. Only you. Only me. His words still rang in my ears, but now they made my skin crawl. With trembling hands, I clicked on Miss Peach's profile. There was a new update. Day 244 with hubby. Mentioned something was cute and boom, it showed up at home. The photo showed the back of a man paying at a counter. Julian hadn't worn that suit when he left this morning. I'd recognize that silhouette anywhere. My stomach turned as I scrolled down. Day 215 with hubby. They're getting engaged, but guess who designed the invite? Me. I love Honeysuckle, look how pretty. The invitation she posted was identical to the one sitting in my drawer. When Julian had given it to me, his eyes had been so tender. Honeysuckle represents devotion. It meant love that lasted forever. Loyalty. Forever. How ironic. Day 198 with hubby. Today's his 7-year anniversary with his girlfriend, but he ditched her to catch a movie with me. I remembered that day. I'd taken the day off, cooked all his favorite dishes, ordered a cake, wrapped a gift. I'd even lit candles. I waited for hours. All I got was an apologetic phone call. Emergency at work, babe. I've got to handle it, I'll be home late. I hadn't doubted him for a second. I'd even told him not to work too hard. My fingertips were ice cold, barely able to grip the phone. I scrolled all the way back to her first post. Met my dream guy today. His car bumped me, but he was so sweet about it, insisted on taking me to the hospital, except he might have a girlfriend. Whatever, letting a catch like that slip away would be criminal. Time to make my move. Edited on March 4th, 2025. The exact day Julian hit that girl. I gagged. I bolted to the bathroom and retched until the room spun. Tears streamed down my face. The woman staring back at me had bloodshot eyes and looked half-crazed. So that was it. 244 days. 7 months and 22 days. All those nights he'd claimed to be working late, stuck at client dinners, handling emergencies, he'd been with her. Every time I'd felt bad for him working so hard, he'd been with her instead. He'd even destroyed the job I loved, with his own hands, just to make room for her. He knew exactly what that job meant to me. Eventually, I dragged myself up and took screenshots of every single post. When Julian came home, he was still wearing the same suit from this morning. There was no trace of perfume, no hint of anything suspicious. He was holding spicy seafood chowder from Westwood, the place I'd mentioned craving last night. Seeing my red-rimmed eyes, he stepped forward quickly and cupped my face. "What's wrong? Did you watch another sad movie?"
The doorbell rang.
He frowned slightly. "Probably just the front desk. I'll get it." When he opened the door, a bright, hooky voice floated in. "Hi, delivery's here." It was you/Miss Peach's voice. Julian froze for a second. He thanked her quickly, shut the door, and walked over with 2 bubble teas in hand. "I saw an insane line on the way home and thought you'd want one, so I ordered delivery. Didn't want the chowder to get cold, so I had it delivered instead." The explanation was seamless. I looked up and held his gaze. "Julian, are you hiding something from me?" Julian's hands paused for a beat as he pushed the straw through the lid. He recovered fast, his smile snapping back into place as he handed me the drink. He ruffled my hair, exasperation softening into fondness. "Have you been on TikTok again? Watching those boyfriend test videos? You know they're all fake, right? It's all clickbait. Besides, when have I ever kept anything from you?" His phone rang, cutting him off mid-sentence. He glanced at the screen and killed it immediately. "Go ahead and eat the chowder before it gets cold. I've got to take this, I'll be right back." His words came faster than usual as he headed for the study. I looked down at the iced matcha latte in my hand. Condensation beaded and ran down the cup and onto the back of my hand, cold on my skin.
I was allergic to matcha.
He'd never slipped up before. But now, something mattered more than me. He emerged a moment later, wearing that familiar sorry look. The same look he always had when work called him away. "Harper," he began. "Is it work?" I didn't wait for him to serve up an excuse. I cut him off. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, something blew up with the partners. It needs my immediate attention." I looked straight into his eyes. "Can you stay?" His expression stiffened for a second. "Harper, come on. Don't start. You know I'm doing all this for us. For our future. I need to prove to my mother that I can make it without a dime for my family. That I can give you everything you deserve." Julian's mother had never liked me. The reason was simple. My background was too humble, rough, even, and nowhere near good enough for the Sterling family. Julian, on the other hand, was old money through and through, born with a silver spoon. Before he met me, his family had laid out his whole life for him. They'd even chosen a wife for him. Yet he defied them all for my sake. He'd insisted on being with me. In a fit of rage, his mother cut him off and kicked him out. She declared that if he could make a name for himself in 5 years without a penny from the family, she'd accept us. She'd accept me. Accept us. So for 5 years, Julian had worked himself to the bone. I'd pushed myself just as hard, terrified of falling behind. Terrified I'd be dead weight. I was terrified his mother's words, "What can she do but drag you down?" would come true. She'd never stopped trying to push me out, either. The offers kept climbing, from $700,000 to $1.5 million. Then, a month ago, she slid a check across the table. $15 million. The condition was always the same. Leave my son. I never took it. I turned it down because I loved Julian. I believed he loved me, too. I stubbornly thought that true love could conquer all hardships, erase the divide, and close the gap between our worlds. Until this moment. The beliefs I'd clung to began to crack, slowly, then all at once. His phone rang again. He glanced at it and didn't even bother with an excuse this time. "Harper, I have to go. Eat something, okay?" He didn't wait for an answer. He turned and walked out the door. I grabbed my phone and followed him out. Down in the parking garage, I saw them. The girl was wrapped around Julian, like a koala bear. His hands were braced under her, adjusting his grip so she could hang on tighter. His voice carried over, half scolding, half amused. "Didn't I tell you to wait in the car? Who said you could come up here? Are you asking for trouble?" She looped her arms around his neck and purred. I want Daddy to take care of me." And I was so slick about it I even bought 2 drinks and played the delivery girl. Don't worry, your precious girlfriend didn't suspect anything. Julian gave a low chuckle and tapped her on the nose. You're smart, but you can't pull that again.
Got it?
I'll give you anything you want, but she can never find out. That's the deal. The girl pouted and squirmed in his arms. Aren't you exhausted keeping this up? Changing your clothes every time you see me? Worried she'll catch on? You really love her that much? Julian went quiet for a beat. Yes, I love her. That's why she can never find out. I won't let her get hurt. What about me? She comes first, but you're a very close second.
Fine.
Then stay with me tonight. All night. You're not going back. Julian dipped his head and kissed her, his voice low. Okay. He carried her to the car. It wasn't long before the car began to rock. I leaned against the concrete pillar and slid down to the ground. Heartbreak, it turned out, was silent, no sound, no tears. I don't know how long I sat there before the car went still. The engine rumbled to life, and the car pulled out. I pulled out my phone and opened my call log. I found the unknown number and dialed. Mrs. Sterling answered. I watched the taillights disappear. 15 million, I said, my voice steady. I'll leave your son. In the sitting room, Mrs. Sterling set down her cup, a smirk tugging at her mouth. So you changed your mind? Last time you said you'd rather die than leave Julian. I left the tea in front of me untouched. He betrayed me. She raised an eyebrow, unsurprised. Because of that girl? Her voice was even. I'd heard whispers. Didn't expect you to be the one to find out. She must have sensed I wasn't in the mood for small talk. Send me your banking details. The money will be wired within 3 days. Her gaze was sharp. Keep your word. If you go near him again, you know what I'll do. I stood and left. A message from Julian came through. Working late at the office tonight, might not make it home. Get some rest. Don't wait up for me. I pulled up the photo I'd taken in the parking garage and sent it to him. Working late? Or are you fucking the delivery girl? No response came. I sat in the living room all night. Julian didn't come home until dawn. He spotted the untouched food on the table, worry flickering across his face. He crossed the room and pressed a hand to my forehead. Why are you so pale? Are you sick? You haven't eaten anything. I turned my head away. His hand hovered there, awkward. I looked up at him, my voice hoarse. Didn't you see my message? He pulled out his phone, frowning. What message? I was dealing with an emergency at the office all night. My phone must have been on silent mode. I didn't see anything. My phone buzzed. Miss Peaches had posted. Day 255 with my sugar daddy. His girlfriend found out about us and texted him, but I deleted it off his phone before he could see. Aren't I clever? The photo showed a man's bare back, a towel slung around his waist. So that was it. My stomach was empty. I didn't even have the energy to feel sick. I forced a smile that wasn't really a smile and looked away. I glanced at Julian, still pretending to check his phone. Maybe it didn't go through. He visibly relaxed. He pulled me into his arms. He rested his chin on top of my head. You scared me, you know that? His voice was soft. His arms were still warm, still smelled like him. But it made my skin go cold. I've been working too much lately. I left you here alone, with no one to keep you company. That's on me. His voice dropped. He sounded like he meant every word. But it'll all be worth it. Tomorrow's our engagement party. I've taken care of everything. I want the whole world to know Yuri, the only woman for me. I didn't speak. I just let him hold me. I thought about the year he'd been cut off because of me, forced to start over with nothing. I'd just graduated college, and he was broke. We'd squeezed into a damp basement apartment and shared bowls of instant ramen. He always gave me the egg. His eyes had been bright when he'd said, I know you're struggling right now because of me, Harper. But I swear I'll make it up to you. I'll give you everything. The tears had been real back then.
So had the heartache.
Maybe even the light in his eyes. If I hadn't scrolled past that post, if I hadn't seen what happened in the parking garage, I would still be foolishly, wholeheartedly trusting him, loving him until there was nothing left of me. The next day, I arrived at the venue Julian had personally overseen. Wild roses everywhere. I'd once told him I loved how wild they were, tough but beautiful. The venue was packed. Only his parents' seats were empty. Wearing the gown he'd commissioned, I stood beside him, accepting congratulations. He held my hand tight, beaming. The MC was wrapping up the opening toast when Julian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and declined the call. The MC was about to announce the ring exchange when his phone buzzed again. This time he hesitated. He gave me an apologetic smile and leaned in. Might be something urgent from the office. Let me just take this. I'll be quick. He let go of my hand and stepped behind a nearby pillar. I stood there watching him. We weren't far apart. I watched him listen, impatient at first, then all the color drained from his face. What? Which hospital? I'll be right there. Don't let her leave. He hung up so fast he didn't have time to compose himself. He spun around and crossed back to me in 3 strides. Harper, I have to go. There's an emergency. I'll be back as soon as I can. It won't take long. Just wait for me, okay? He didn't wait for an answer. He turned and left. The room fell silent. Then came the whispers. Every eye turned to me. The MC fumbled for words, trying to salvage the moment. My phone buzzed. A bank notification. A message from his mother. Money sent. Don't forget our agreement. Almost immediately, you/Miss Peaches posted again. Day 256 with Sugar Daddy. Got myself clipped by a car on purpose, and he left his engagement party to come see me, told you I'm his favorite. I took a screenshot and added it to the slideshow I'd prepared. I walked up to the MC and took the microphone. Everyone, the engagement is off. I'm sorry. But before I leave, I have a gift for you. I pulled up the presentation on the big screen. Julian's cheating diary. The first slide was you/Miss Peach's latest post. I ignored the chaos erupting behind me, lifted the hem of my gown, and walked out. I took a taxi to the airport. I turned off my phone, popped out the SIM card, and snapped it in half. Julian rushed to the hospital only to find Tiffany Miller's injuries were minor. Irritation flickered through him, but he kept his voice gentle. Just rest up, Peaches. I'll come see you tomorrow. His phone rang before he could even leave the room. His assistant. Mr. Sterling, turn on the news. Ms. Lane, she put everything on the screen. Julian froze. The color drained from his face as the assistant's words rang in his head. She knows. Everyone knows. Asterisk. Cold dread washed over him, sharper than anything he'd ever felt. He couldn't stop shaking. He'd been so careful, changing clothes before every visit, scrubbing himself raw afterward until no trace of perfume remained. After that incident at the door, he'd made sure Tiffany never came anywhere near Harper again. How had Harper Lane found out? Where had he slipped? Tiffany stared at him, watching him come apart. Julian. Her voice cut through his panic, tight with worry. Babe, what's wrong? He didn't hear her. He was already out the door. He started the car and dialed Harper's number with shaking hands. Once, twice, 10 times it went straight to voicemail. He hurled the phone onto the passenger seat and stomped on the gas, tires shrieking on the asphalt. He sped toward the engagement venue. The guests had long since scattered, leaving behind nothing but debris and a dead LED screen. The assistant rushed over. Julian grabbed his arm. Where is Harper? Where did she go? The assistant's face tightened as he shook his head. We saw her walk out. After that, he shrugged helplessly. Julian swayed, nearly losing his balance. The assistant hesitated before speaking again. Mr. Sterling, what was on that screen got recorded and spread. We tried to contain it, but it went viral before we could stop it. He handed over a tablet. The top trending topic stared back at him. Hashtag Julian Sterling exposed. Fiancé nukes engagement party with receipts. He tapped it. Clear screenshots of all 300 slides, then Harper's silhouette walking away. The comment section was exploding. So brutal, yet so satisfying. This kind of man deserves to be dragged in public. The fiancé is savage. I saw that at Miss Peach's account before and thought it was insane back then. Julian didn't care about the insults right now. He scrolled, unable to look away. Tiffany's smug posts. The anniversary entries cataloging every hookup. The parking. Garage photos. His eyes snagged. Staged a little car accident and Bay came running. Ditched his fiancée right in the middle of their engagement party. Rage and regret hit him like a punch. Not because of the exposure itself, but because Tiffany had shredded his carefully constructed lies in the stupidest, most vicious way possible. He remembered that morning when he was cutting a lemon for Harper in the kitchen. Tiffany had sent him a photo, bare shoulders, tousled sheets. The image had distracted him enough that the knife slipped. As usual, he used a company emergency as an excuse to leave. Harper's eyes had filled with tears at the sight of it. You've been working yourself to death. I hate seeing you like this. I'll find a job soon, I promise. I don't want to be dead weight to you. But all he could think about then was his date with Tiffany later. When he'd come home that afternoon to find her eyes red and swollen, he'd assumed she'd been watching some sad movie. So when she'd asked, "Are you hiding anything from me?" each word a plea for honesty, he'd answered with one seamless lie after another, crushing whatever fragile hope she'd still been clinging to. He turned to the assistant, his voice desperate. Call security. Get the private investigators. I don't care what it takes, find her. He bolted from the hall as soon as the words were out, heading straight home. When he pushed the door open, everything looked the same, and nothing did. Her slippers were still by the entryway. They were the fluffy bunny slippers he'd gotten her. One ear flopped sideways. The air carried that familiar orange blossom scent, her favorite candle. A design magazine lay open on the coffee table, the corner folded over. Her highlighter sat beside it. It felt like she'd just stepped out for a moment and would walk through the bedroom door at any second. He could almost see her coming out, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Hey, you're back." His chest tightened, like someone had cinched a strap around it. He retreated to the bedroom, trying to outrun the echo of her. In the walk-in closet, her clothes still hung neatly. Her jewelry box sat on the vanity, untouched. His hands shook as he pulled open the drawer at the back of the closet, hers. It was empty. The passport was gone. Her papers were all gone. The keepsakes from her mother were all gone. He sank onto the edge of the bed. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Sterling. He watched her name flash across the screen and let it keep ringing. He lay there, breathing in what remained of Harper's scent on the sheets, until the room went dark. When his assistant called with an update, the news wasn't good. "Mr. Sterling, we tracked her to the airport." After that, someone wiped her tracks. Someone had deliberately made her disappear. Only one person could pull that off. He drove straight to Sterling Manor. He hadn't set foot there in 7 years. Mrs. Sterling seemed to have been expecting him. She sat upright on the living room sofa, steam curling up from her teacup. Julian stood before her, his voice flat and cold. "Where's Harper? What did you do with her?" Mrs. Sterling slowly raised her eyes, taking in the sight of her son. Those eyes, so much like his, held no warmth. "Have you forgotten how to speak to your mother?" Julian's fists clenched, knuckles white. "Just answer me. Why would I hide her?" She set down her teacup. The porcelain clicked sharply against the wooden table. "Why would I need to hide someone who chose to leave by herself?" Julian took a step closer, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. "My assistant said someone covered her tracks. Who else has that kind of power?" "Julian, you still don't get it?" She stood and walked toward him, her gaze cutting. "I never forced her away. I gave her a choice, again and again. She finally realized you weren't worth it." Julian went rigid. "Do you think she left because of Tiffany?" Mrs. Sterling shook her head. Her eyes held nothing but cold pity. "Tiffany was just the spark. She left because she finally realized the Julian who would have fought the world for her doesn't exist now." "Where is she now?" Julian's voice was hoarse, the question barely more than a rasp. Mrs. Sterling turned to the window, gazing into the darkness. "She's somewhere you'll never find." When she looked back at him, her expression held disappointment and mockery, and beneath it all, a weariness she couldn't quite hide. "You know," she began, her voice measured, "before your engagement, I'd already decided to accept her." Julian's head snapped up. His eyes tightened as he stared at her in disbelief. The woman he'd always seen as his greatest obstacle had just said something he'd never imagined possible. "Why?" The word came out rough. "Why?" Her voice softened, though her smile was bitter. "Because I saw something in her that you don't have, Julian. Resilience.
Clarity.
That drive to make something of herself even when the odds were stacked against her. For 5 years, I watched her. She didn't ride your coattails. She worked to stand beside you, not behind you. She was more grounded than you ever were." She took another step closer. "I thought maybe she could change you, make you understand what responsibility means, what it takes to show up for
someone.
I thought your love for her might make you different." She paused. When she spoke again, her voice carried nothing but disappointment. "But I was wrong. Julian, you're your father's son." The words went off in his head. The word father was a forbidden subject in this house. A philanderer who'd put his own pleasures above the Sterling name. He'd died young, leaving Mrs. Sterling to hold a massive empire together on her own. She'd been left with nothing but betrayal and shame that went bone deep. Julian had grown up on his mother's bitter stories about his father. He'd believed he was different, that 7 years with Harper proved he was. "I'm not like him." The denial came on instinct. "Not like him." Mrs. Sterling sneered. She took a file from a nearby drawer and tossed it in front of him, a private investigator's report. A timeline listed every private meeting between him and Tiffany over the past 6 months. Hotel records, money, transfers, comparisons between Tiffany's social media posts and his schedule. The sheer volume was incriminating. Your father was just as careful back then, juggling different women. He thought he was invincible, that everyone around him was blind. Mrs. Sterling's voice could have cut through steel. He could be perfectly gentle with me, then turn straight around and run to someone else. He bought me the most expensive jewelry while buying condos for his side pieces. He probably thought that as long as he covered his tracks and came home smelling like nothing at all, he could keep up appearances. She was stripping away his last illusions. Julian, tell me, what makes you any different? You're not even as smart as he
Was.
At least he didn't let his mistress strut in front of me while he played puppet master. But you? You didn't even realize when Harper figured it out. Your version of love, your idea of protection, you kept her in a cage built out of lies. And behind her back, you became exactly like the father you despise. I didn't, Julian's voice faltered. He wanted to say he'd been under too much pressure, that he'd just lost his way for a moment. He'd never thought of giving up on Harper. In everyone else's eyes, he'd already become the very thing he loathed most. Mrs. Sterling gathered the reports, her movements measured. Your father destroyed my trust in marriage. And you, Julian, you destroyed a girl's faith in love. 7 years of her life. I didn't hide her. When she finally decided to leave, I just gave her the freedom to start over. It's what you owe her. She turned and walked away. Julian stood frozen. Cold flooded his veins. His mother's words were like a scalpel, stripping him down piece by piece, exposing the rot he'd been too afraid to face. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He hadn't just lost Harper. He'd lost himself. Tiffany's account had imploded. The comments section was a slaughterhouse. Being a homewrecker and still so high profile, you deserve it. Your parents must be so proud. You and that cheater Julian are trash. You deserve each other. Julian scrolled through the wreckage as he drove away from Sterling Manor. Tiffany was vile, sure. But he was the one who'd enabled all of it. He'd allowed the affair. He'd fed her vanity with money and hollow affection until she'd actually believed what she'd stolen was hers. He closed the app. He ended up outside Harper's old office without realizing it. He stared up at the darkened windows where her office had been. This was where he'd gotten her fired to make room for Tiffany. He'd forgotten what that job had meant to her. She'd worked late into the night there, revising proposal after proposal, fighting to prove herself. Her proving ground, her shot at standing beside him. And he destroyed it. His stomach turned, but he felt too numb to even be sick. His phone vibrated. Tiffany calling. He stared at her name. The exhaustion was suffocating. He didn't pick up. The phone kept ringing. When he didn't answer, a text came through. Julian, help me. Everyone's dragging me. They found where I live and my mom's in the hospital because of this. What do I do? He used to crave this dependence. Now it just exhausted him. Harper, who'd always shouldered her burdens alone, no matter how heavy. The only time she'd broken down was when she couldn't afford her mother's surgery. Even then, she'd been trying to solve it herself, not just crying for someone to fix it. He locked the screen and threw the phone aside. He pulled back onto the dark streets. He had to find Harper.
He owed
her an apology, a real one, face to face. I landed in Valoria. 2 men in black suits met me just outside arrivals. Ms. Lane? Mrs. Sterling arranged your transport. I nodded, my throat dry. Yes. I slid into the black sedan and watched the city roll past. Unfamiliar architecture lined the streets, weathered stone and ornate facades that felt a world away from home. Less than 24 hours ago, Julian had walked out on our engagement. It already felt like another lifetime. Mrs. Sterling, Julian's mother. The day I'd gone to see her, she'd stopped me as I was leaving. Harper. I turned back. She sat in the half-light, her features lost in shadow, but her voice steady. If I remember right, you studied jewelry.
Design.
I blinked, caught off guard. Then nodded. I have a friend in Valoria who works in the industry. She's accomplished, actually.
She paused.
If you're interested, perhaps you could use a change of scenery. A fresh start. 1,000 thoughts crowded in. I could refuse. Keep whatever pride I had left. Stay away from anything Sterling related. But another voice, stronger, pushed back. Why punish myself for someone else's mistakes? Why turn down an opportunity out of spite? I needed an anchor, somewhere I could catch my breath and rebuild. Okay, I heard myself say. Thank you. The drive took nearly an hour. When I arrived, a woman greeted me with a warm smile and English thick with an accent. Welcome, Harper. Mrs. Sterling has told me about you. It took me a moment to place her face, magazine spreads, auction catalogs. Elena Costa. Quite a reputation was putting it mildly. Elena was a legend. Her pieces set auction records and collectors fought over them. The words I'd prepared stuck in my throat. She caught my expression and her smile widened. Mrs. Sterling said you have an eye that understands the stone soul. That your sketches got clearer after life put you through the tumbler. She crossed to a display cabinet and drew out an unfinished brooch, rough, edged but already taking shape. She held it out to me in her open palm. Asterisk, and I have been looking for an apprentice who understands how to find brilliance in the broken. 1 year later, Avellini. The Rebirth collection, designed by Elena and me, was being exhibited at the city's most prestigious gallery. The honeysuckle brooch, the piece that had consumed most of our energy, sat alone in a case at the center. The exhibition brochure included Elena's message, dedicated to all who choose to reset themselves after being broken. I moved through the crowd, speaking with collectors and critics in Valerian, which came easily now. Elena appeared at my elbow with 2 champagne flutes. My dear, several collectors have been asking about the honeysuckle piece. One in particular can't take his eyes off it. She glanced discreetly across the room. I followed her gaze. Something flickered in my chest, recognition maybe, then steadied just as quickly. Julian stood a few paces from the display case. He wasn't looking at the exhibit. He was looking at me. He'd lost weight. The easy confidence he used to carry had vanished, replaced by something harder. Exhaustion lined his
face.
He clutched an exhibition brochure, his knuckles white. I turned back to Elena and smiled. You and the manager can handle the clients, Elena. I'll check on the other pieces. I slipped back into the crowd, but I could still feel him watching. The night dragged on. I stepped out onto the terrace for air. I'd barely stopped moving before I heard footsteps behind me. Harper. His voice came out rough. I didn't turn around. Congratulations.
He paused.
The words seemed to cost him. The work is beautiful. So is the message. I turned to face him, my expression neutral. Thank you. Are you here for the exhibition, Mr. Sterling? Mr. Sterling hit like a punch. He actually flinched. He managed a bitter smile. I've been keeping up with your work. I knew you'd come to Avellini, but I didn't dare. He trailed off. My mother told me about this exhibition. When he looked up, his eyes were bloodshot and desperate. I just needed to see for myself that you were okay. As you can see, I said, giving a slight nod. I'm doing just fine. I know. He took a step forward, then stopped himself. His hands curled into fists. I know I have no right to say anything to you. No right to even be here. I just needed to tell you to your face. I'm sorry. The apology seemed to take everything he had. For all of it. For the lies. The betrayal. My arrogance and stupidity. For destroying your job. Your trust. Everything we had for 7 years. His voice broke. His eyes went red, but he fought the tears back. I looked everywhere for you. I've replayed that night hundreds of times. This isn't an excuse. I know it doesn't come close to enough. The night air stirred my dress. I listened without feeling much of anything. The pain that would have destroyed me a year ago felt distant now, like it was behind thick glass, visible but unable to touch me. I've heard your apology, I said evenly. Julian, it's in the past. It can't be, he shook his head, almost violent in his denial. For me, it'll never be over. I became the person I hated.
Most.
I lost the most important thing in my life.
Harper.
I wouldn't dare ask you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know I understand now how badly I fucked up. If there's even the smallest chance. There isn't. I cut him off, my voice clear and final. He went completely still. What little color he had left drained away. Julian, you're not part of my present. You won't be part of my future. Your apologies, your regrets, those are yours too.
Carrie.
They're not mine anymore. I took Mrs. Sterling's help because it was good for my career. Not because I was looking back or leaving a door open.
I've
let go. That's not forgiveness. It's just indifference. I looked at him one last time. This man who'd once been my entire world. So please, let yourself move on, too. We don't owe each other anything. That ledger is closed. I gave him a small nod, a final goodbye. Then I turned and walked back toward the light of the exhibition hall, not looking back. Elena was waiting near the entrance, her smile warm. A few steps later, the crowd swallowed me up again. I knew there was still a long road ahead, but my sketches were already full of new landscapes, ones that were mine. Alone. The end.